Hello, everybody.
Welcome back to the Other Side Lifestyle Podcast with Jim and Aram. We're going to be talking with someone who's a little bit off the beaten path from what we normally talk about. We have a killer episode coming up. This is a killer guest. We are excited to hear her story. I know Aram is. I know the gist of it. Aram knows the gist of it, but we can't wait to find out more. Before we get into that, we have Tennyson Jacobson. A lot of syllables if you say the whole name.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So you go by Tenny, though, correct?
Yeah,
In
I
general?
say anybody can call me whatever they prefer.
T-Money
yeah,
it is.
Tenny feels right for people who know me. So.
All right, sounds good. My son's name is Hendrix, and his one friend always calls him Henny.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
A lot of rappers would be happy about that.
They would be. It's mildly racist. That's okay.
Only mild. If we're doing
Mild is
mildly
good for
racist,
us.
that's okay. Because typically I could be fully racist.
Fully.
Yeah.
So tell us about your life these days. Your family. What are you doing? How is life?
Yeah, don't blow the surprise. We're gonna get into the story like 20 minutes from now. So let's pepper people with the boring
Dangle
stuff
the
first.
carrot.
Yeah, and then we can really hit them in the jugular, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah, well, currently I'm an insurance agent, which I never imagined myself to be. I went to college for nutrition, thought I would pursue that, and then ended up opening a CrossFit gym that my husband and I had for almost a decade. My husband's a firefighter, so that complemented it well. And then in 2017, that chapter kind of came to a close, and I got invited to open an insurance agency, which I thought, what the heck? This is crazy. I don't want to do that. I just ended up deciding to go for it. And if I didn't like it, I could always sell and quit. So I've been doing that for 7 years and built a pretty successful business doing insurance. But part of me, I've realized I loved building community with like what I learned with our experience with the CrossFit gym. So part of my heart and soul has been missing because I just sit at a desk all day and don't really connect with people on a deeper level. So that's been part of the mission of why we're talking today is writing the book about my story and my experience so that I can hopefully help people in a different way that does fulfill me. But yeah, I have 2 kids. My daughter's 12. My son is 9. My husband's still a firefighter, and he's switched from CrossFit to pickleball and is obsessed. And
Shout
just
out
as
Mike
competitive.
Dola. Make sure he hears this episode.
Yeah. So yeah, we're doing well.
Nice. What was the hardest part about running the CrossFit gym?
The hardest part about running the CrossFit gym.
Dealing with CrossFit.
I didn't deal with that part, but I would say it was our landlord situation, like all the rent stuff and personal guarantees, and so we're just outside of Seattle.
Okay, there's so much CrossFit up there.
There is, yeah. And when we started, it was 2009, so you still had to tell people what CrossFit was, explain it. So we started at a really good time, but our rent when we started was like $2,000, and then by the time we ended, we were approaching like 10 grand a month just for rent, and then there's all the other overhead. So that just became so stressful.
Yeah, people have no idea. They look at how many clients you have and how much you're paying a month, and they're like, they're raking it in. They have no idea.
Yeah, no, our partner, so it was us and then one other partner, and I think, and he had the sucky job, like he trained and cleaned the bathrooms, which was the worst part. And that, I think he made like $1,200 a month. So you do it because you love it, right? But yeah, it became a little too stressful.
Do you think if they listened to your nutrition advice, the bathrooms would have been easier to clean?
Great question. Probably not.
Yes, digestive health would have been a lot better.
Yeah. I think it was more so the showers. The showers were kind of gross.
Okay.
Not the ladies' showers, so sorry, guys.
Hey.
No, I don't know.
Oh, no,
who knows?
We're horrible pieces of shit. I 100% understand that.
No.
I grew up in a very structured family growing up, and it was there was no leaving anything anywhere. So I don't have that problem. But I've seen enough men's bathrooms and showers and bachelor pads to where I'm just like, how do any one of you ever get laid?
At the same time, you look at like a women's dorm room
Ugh.
bathroom
Oh,
situation.
true, for sure.
Horrible.
I mean,
Like
come
staph
on.
infection immediately from walking in, tampons everywhere. Yeah,
Everywhere.
not good. Not good.
My husband is super clean, so I will say like I've gotten lucky probably, but
Yeah.
Was he in the military?
no, he wasn't. He went straight to firefighting.
But even like firefighters, like they kind of have to live in that like very structured lifestyle.
True.
So like they get shit from their superiors if they don't keep a clean house.
Very true. Yeah.
So it's good that he has it. He's got does he have a nice schedule? Is he like one of those 24 on, 72 off guys?
Yeah, he works 4 days on, 96 off. So 2 days on, 4 days off. Yeah. And then every 6 sets, he gets 10 days off, which is pretty sweet.
It's such a great. I wanted to be a firefighter in Connecticut for like 9 years. I kept trying. Nepotism kept holding me back.
It's tough. Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I will say he just got off shift on Monday, and I mean, 2 awful nights of sleep. That sleep really does wreck you. So
does he do anything else, or is that his the only job?
No, it was just that was part of the reason why getting out of CrossFit, because that became another full-time job.
Yeah.
So it was just too much. But I am trying to get him to help in the insurance agency a little bit. So I don't know, but it's mainly that. And then he's an awesome dad. He's like the one dad at the school all the time, volunteers for like everything. So yeah, coaches all the sports. Cool. So
you guys have found some work-life balance.
Yes.
Good.
Very important.
And if anyone's learned anything so far, you can go to school for whatever you want and then get a career in whatever the hell you want.
Whatever you want. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It is so true.
The degrees in nutrition, were you becoming a registered dietitian?
Yeah, that was the plan. So my history was I went through an eating disorder. So I got down to like 94 pounds. I played tennis in college. And so it started as I just want to tone up, and that became a big problem. So I originally wanted to go to school to help women with eating disorders. I took one class on that and realized this is all psychological, and I do not have the gift for that. So then I just loved nutrition and wanted to help people that way. But then at the end of my senior year, I did this externship where I worked with a dietitian, and it was in a hospital, and I just hate hospitals. Like the energy of hospitals is really, really hard for me. It was so sad and so depressing. And then I would meet with some of her clients, and none of them wanted to see her because they were just being told to see her. And I'm like, no one even wants to work with you. Like, this sucks. Like, I want to work with people who want to work with me. So then I was like, I don't even know what to do. And then that's when CrossFit entered in the picture. But yeah, long story of that.
Yeah. And then now... Oh, go ahead.
Isn't that such a sad commentary, though, about the route that a lot of registered dietitians have to take to begin their career? Mm-hmm. And then just like everything else, right? Like, you have an insurance agency. We're not going to shit on insurance too much, but the insurance model...
I get it.
The insurance model...
But she's not health insurance.
Oh, okay. What kind of insurance?
I'm not, no.
She's home, car, life, the good ones.
The good stuff, yeah. So, fuck health insurance, but health insurance is what destroys healthcare. 100%. Mm-hmm. There's no argument. I think anybody.
I agree.
People in the insurance business will tell you that it destroys healthcare. Mm-hmm. But everybody that ends up wanting to actually take care of people goes private pay.
Yeah.
Because those people have incentive to actually do the protocols and do the work and show up, as opposed to here's your medically registered dietitian that we're forcing you to go see that you don't want to see because you don't actually give a shit to make any differences.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with like physical therapy and body work and anything like that. It's like the second you're told to do it and insurance covers it, you're like, fuck it, I'm not going to go. Versus like, no, I'm paying $300 a month. I'm going to show up.
It was actually so interesting to me too, because once I graduated and then I realized like, oh, this is not what I want to do, which I wish they help you learn that earlier. Like, why does that just happen at the end? But then CrossFit entered our world. And of course, as you guys know, it's all about the paleo diet. And I didn't know, I was never introduced to the paleo diet in my schooling. it was all food guide pyramid. And so it was like,
Wow.
what am I even learning? And this is 20 years ago, like, but I just felt gypped that I didn't like get the extensive knowledge. Like it was all such old school, nutrition advice.
Wow.
So
Yeah, textbook stuff. The textbook hasn't been changed in 50, 70 years.
Yeah. Hopefully better now, but
Yeah. So you said that the psychological aspect, you're like, this isn't for me. Now you've gone through something, and I read the cover of your book, and you're very much so into at least the emotional health aspect of your life, or of people's lives, and the importance of that, which connects to all that stuff we were just talking about. We know that emotional eating is, a huge factor for so many people, if not all of us. I don't even know what my question. I had this question in my head that I started to get to.
like I said, I chose
has that
not
perspective
to do psychology.
changed? I guess basically.
Yeah, no, I've actually really reflected on that piece that like I was turned off because I didn't think I had the ability for the psychology aspect of it. And now, boy, have things come full circle, and like all I'm passionate about is mental health.
Yeah.
What I would say to that is like I'm so sensitive in all ways, like energetically, emotionally. I run a business. I'm very like driven, but like I take on people's energy like very much so. And so even thinking about like therapy and helping in that way, and even listening to calls my husband's gone on in the beginning of our marriage, he would share calls he went on. And I mean, it would wreck me for some of these calls for like days. And so I think thinking of these women who are in such, struggling places, that would be very hard for me personally. And so I've toyed with like, ooh, I need to make boundaries, and I could figure that out. But like, yeah, my heart pulls for that, but I'm also know it would be hard for me too.
The hard part about boundaries when you're talking about people that have any type of mental health issues is you have to tackle the problem as it's occurring. Right? So this is why, like, to me, if you have a therapist, the therapist is a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly appointment, whether in person or on the phone. But outside of that, they're very much not available to the individual, or at least very intermittently available. But if somebody's going through a crisis, or at least a perceived crisis in their own mind, and they don't have access to somebody to get that crisis out of their head, it's going to launch them into a position that's going to be very unhealthy. And that's where I have a problem with the entire clinical psychology part of things. Because, yes, it's out of our scope of practice as coaches to discuss or treat eating disorders or mental health issues. But let's be very clear, 99% of non-compliance to a nutritional protocol or a training protocol is a psychological issue. So if we don't at least understand that language and are available to our clientele base, we can't help them. But a lot of times we are the forefront of that healthcare because they can't get it anywhere else. Or if they do, it's going to cost them an arm and a leg to access it private pay. So I actually sometimes will operate out of the scope of my practice. Fuck you, whoever's listening. And I'm the reason why some people do get the help that they need. And I'm also some of the times the reason why people end up having to go seek deeper mental health work because they don't have a macro issue. They don't have a reps and sets problem. They have deep-seated psychological issues that need to be unpacked, and they need coping mechanisms and skills built. Otherwise, none of this stuff is going to ever matter.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll talk about how your big T trauma led to you, from what I'm understanding, really kind of unpack, coming off what Aram just said, some of the little T trauma that maybe you didn't quite realize until after it happened. So I'm going to have you go back to 2013. You are 8 months pregnant. You are
not pregnant. My daughter was 8 months old.
Was 8 months old. You're running a CrossFit gym. Your husband's a firefighter at the time. And you're going about your day. You wake up, you have some coffee, you can jump in wherever you want. And tell us about tell us about what happened. This is insane.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it was Mother's Day of 2013. So it's my first Mother's Day. Our daughter was 8 months old. At the time, we were living with my mom. So in the house I grew up in, because we were building our house. So we moved in with her to save money while we built our house. And because it was Mother's Day weekend, and I share this in the book, so it's not going to shock my mother, but like my mom and I had a really challenging relationship. She had a lot of her own trauma that she never really found support for. And so I became the dumping ground for that. I mean, at that point, it was at least a decade. Now it's been decades. And so we went away that weekend to get a break. My husband's parents have a condo over in Eastern Washington that's on the river. It's beautiful. There's sunshine. So we had Sunday, Mother's Day. We had gotten home around noon from being away for the weekend. And the plan was to have some time with my mom for Mother's Day. And then my husband made reservations for my daughter and him and I to go out to dinner that night. So at the time, our CrossFit gym, we had really competitive athletes, and we were always really close in the regionals, making it to the games. And like the previous 2 years, we had just missed it. So that year in 2013, it was like, this is our year. So when we got home from our weekend away, my husband basically like packed up and he headed out to go train with the team. And then I was just going to pick up, hang out with my mom until he came back. So he leaves, and then my mom and I end up, unfortunately, in an argument. She goes to her bedroom. She's upset. She goes and takes a shower. So she's just kind of in her own space. So I'm like trying to pick up the house. My daughter's on the floor, and the house I grew up in, the front of the house is like the front door is in the back, but then like the front of our house is all these windows to look up at this beautiful mountain that my parents built their dream house to look at. And so we were also on the outskirts of town. So like nobody ever came to our house. So I'm picking up and I can see out of the corner of my eye, a stranger walking up to the front door, which are these big glass doors. And your instinct is to head to the door to greet the visitor. But like so quickly, my mind was like, well, this is weird. Like nobody ever comes here. It's Sunday. It's Mother's Day. So within like 2 steps, I realized this man who was, he was over 6 feet tall, just big. He was coming to the front door, and it was very clear he was not going to stop at the front door. And so he barged right in. And my instinct, and he came straight for me. And so my instinct was to head towards my daughter, who I had sit on a little mat by the couch, and I just ran towards her. But before I could get to her, he grabbed me by the ponytail. And at that time I was right by the couch and right by her. And so he yanked me by the ponytail, and then he covered my mouth with his other hand, pressed his body into mine, and bent me over the couch. And in that moment, like he was, I don't even know how to explain like how disgusting he was. He was filthy. He smelt like putrid. I've never smelt a smell like that before in my life. His energy and like demeanor was just like so intense. So as he's bending me over the couch, I'm like, he's going to take me. He's going to take me. He's going to rape me. He's going to kill me. Is he going to make me take my daughter with me? Like all these thoughts are going through my mind. And so he's covering my mouth, and then he like gets right in my face and basically is like, I won't hurt you. I just want your money. And in that moment, it gave me a little sense of hope. Like, oh, he wants money. Okay. Like that there was something I could do. And, by the grace of God or whatever you believe in, like I had $41 in my wallet, which I never carried cash, but somebody paid me for a hoodie at our gym. And so I told him I had money. He walked me to the front door, still like holding on to my ponytail. And as I got to the diaper bag, which had my wallet, he's waiting for me to pull out my wallet and get him the money. And it was all just so weird because like hindsight, you would think like, if he just wanted money, wouldn't he take my purse? Or like he waits for me to get out my wallet. And once I find my wallet, which it was so annoying, like it's this overpacked diaper bag. So the wallet is of course at the bottom, the heaviest thing. And so I get my wallet, which is this zip wallet, and he waits for me to unzip it. Again, like, wouldn't you just take my wallet? So all of these little nuggets are like, it just felt weird. Something felt really off for me, but I wasn't consciously aware of why. So he waits for me to unzip it. I get out the money. I hand it to him. He finally lets go of me. And then he turned and looked at me, and his eyes were like so black. It's like you watch a horror movie, like when people are just completely vacant and their eyes are completely black. And he looked at me with this look like, I hate you. And then he slapped me, super hard. I fell down, sprained my ankle, and he walked, not ran. He just walked right out. And he didn't even go down the stairs. He just like hopped over the railing, and he was out of sight. So,
and your mom's upstairs.
It's a 1-story home. So she's in her bedroom in the shower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your daughter's sitting there watching everything. Well,
yes.
8-month-old. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she's starting to scream. And then I'm not a big swearer, but I start dropping F-bombs because I'm like, what the f just happened? And so my mom starts hearing me in a way that like she's never heard me before. So she runs out in her towel, like, Tennyson, what happened? What happened? So I told her somebody just broke in. And I honestly don't remember if I called my husband first or 911. I think I called my husband first. And so he started to race home from the gym, call the cops. They come, and took him a while to get there. And basically it started this investigation looking for him. They had dogs that, pick up on the scent of hormones or pheromones or whatever it is.
Which was easy in this case. From your description of him.
You think?
But it's Seattle.
But I honestly, his demeanor and his presence, he was calm as a cucumber. He was so intense, like he was of another world. So I'm aware that you release pheromones when you're in this like, nervous system dysregulated state. Like he was not dysregulated. And so I didn't know if they would actually, like, it's not a body smell thing. It's a hormone thing. And so I didn't know if they would pick up a scent. I kind of didn't think they would. And they didn't. They couldn't find anything. They just found like broken blades of grass. There's like this little patch of woods behind our house, and they found some like footprints, but they couldn't really find anything. So he kind of just disappeared. And so when he bent me over the couch, he had this trucker hat on and it fell off. So I had like one piece of evidence to give to them. So the investigation goes on for hours. My husband comes home with our friend who owned the gym with us. Because it's taking so long, we tell my husband's friend, like, hey, take Kyle's truck, like, go home. This is, taking way too long. So they don't find anything. But I had this feeling, he's coming back. He's coming back. And I'm a big time people pleaser. I'm pretty shy. I'm pretty quiet. And I don't like to challenge authority, but so it took me like every ounce of courage to say, like, I think he's coming back. I think he's coming back. And voice that to multiple police officers, and, was told on several different occasions. Like the first one was like, in 30 years of experience, nobody's ever come back. Another one told me, of course, we don't have a magic ball or crystal ball, but like, we've never seen anybody come back. Another one, like, the likelihood of that happening is like impossible. And so I was so, like, they were all kind and respectful, but I was so frustrated because I just had this feeling, and it wasn't like, it was so calm and neutral. It wasn't like from a place of panic or anxiety. Of course that was there too. But anyway, so we go to dinner. That was a whole, that was really hard. Cause I've never been attacked before, but
I
like
mean, that that
being
that
it.
that sounds like a takeout night.
Yeah, well, actually, I kind of wanted to get out of the house because I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like, I don't want to be here anymore. I felt so exposed to like this person. But
yeah.
then you go out to dinner and like I write about this in my book, like going down to walk to the bathroom, like I was scared for my life. Like I thought this person would just jump out of nowhere because he came out of nowhere at our house. So like it became so exposing. And then even just watching people at dinner, like for Mother's Day and celebrate, and like all I can think about was like all of this stuff. So it just is, yeah, weird. So we go to bed that night, and typically I sleep on the side of the bed that's by the door so that I could get up for our daughter if needed. And then my husband sleeps on the side of the bed that's opposite. And we've had discussions about gun ownership in the past. And I always told my husband, like, I just don't think I could kill someone if they broke in. Most likely that would be turned against me and then I would be hurt. So we never chose to have a gun for self and home protection. So our home protection was, we had a wooden Louisville Slugger bat that was on my husband's side of the bed. And then one of our members from our CrossFit gym was a cop, and he said, don't get like pepper spray, get wasp spray. So my side of the bed had wasp spray. So just odd that we had that. Most people probably don't have those things. So that night going to bed, I was freaking terrified. I was like, this is awful. I don't want to go to bed. But I made my husband switch sides of the bed with me because I didn't want to be close to the door, scared he was going to bust in. So we go to bed. I have the baby monitor because I'm like, I'm just going to stare at the baby monitor, because if he does come back, like and he happens to go to my daughter's room, like I'm going to catch him. So I'm laying there. It's 1:30 in the morning. We had our two little Yorkies who slept with us in bed, and almost every night they got up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, which is ridiculous. But anyway, so they like wiggle and it's like time to go to the bathroom. And I wake my husband up. And I should say before that, like going to bed, I was obviously so scared. I went around the house and double checked every lock, every window. And there was a lot of windows in that house. Like, so I did a whole check on it. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'd get back in bed and I did it again. So I triple checked every single lock in that house that night. So it's 1:30 in the morning, dogs wake up. I wake up my husband. I'm like, you have to take out the dogs. I'm not doing it tonight. And so he gets up and he starts heading out the hallway. And all of a sudden, the dogs like run back in and they like burrow into me, and they're like nervous and they're shaking, and which was weird. Like they're high energy dogs, but they're not like that. And so I start to hear wrestling. And so I'm now on the side of the bed that has the bat. So I grab the bat, and I had told my husband, like, grab the bat when you take him to go to the bathroom. I think he was annoyed. He did not think this guy was coming back. So to appease me, he grabs the wasp spray. So he goes out into the hall. And I hear this wrestling. And so what my husband said happened is when he got in, turns the corner and goes down the hallway, our dogs started growling. And he hadn't made it to the front door yet. So he turns to tell them to shut up. And the dude is at the end of the hallway in our house. He had passed our bedroom and my daughter's bedroom, and he was going to like the last bedroom, which is my mom's bedroom. And so he turns the guys at the end of the hallway and basically charges right for my husband. So my husband's like, holy shit. Are you guys there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I keep actually
We're frozen in real life.
Okay.
We're frozen
Okay.
in real life right now.
Okay. So he turns the guys there, and my husband's like, holy shit. And so he starts spraying wasp spray at the guy. It does nothing except for piss him off. So my husband drops the wasp spray. This guy passes the front door to start fighting my husband. And to give a little context of my husband, like I mentioned, he was on our CrossFit team, getting ready for the regional. So he was, he is our team leader. He's one of the strongest, fittest guys in our gym. He wrestled in high school. He coached wrestling after high school. So he's like, if there's a guy you want in a fight, like, I'm sure you guys would be this too, but like my husband is like, especially with even his awareness of like calm in traumatic situations from the fire department, like he's the guy you'd want in this situation. And so he and this guy start fighting, and my husband's trying to punch him and get him down. And my husband said, like, he knew because of what happened after the first event, like, if we're not winning this fight, like, we're all going to die. And so I hear this wrestling, and I immediately jump out of bed. I grab the bat. I run out there. And because of my husband, he was able to get this guy in a headlock, which is incredible, which means basically the guy's on all fours. And then my husband had his arm wrapped around the guy's neck. So the guy's head is tucked down. He's on all fours. His back is wide open. And then my husband's kind of to the side. And so it kind of perfectly set me up to have this wide open back, and I have this back. And so I'm small, but now I'm filled with rage and anger and all the adrenaline and everything. And so I wind up that Louisville Slugger bat as like high as I could, and I slammed it as hard as I could on his back, screaming, "F you." And then I kept just like swinging it slamming it as hard as I could on his back. And then on the sixth swing, the bat broke, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Those are hard to break.
Yeah. This is not a kid's bat. This is a solid wooden Louisville Slugger bat. And
that's why you do med ball slams in
right.
CrossFit. I was prepping you for this. Jeez.
So, and it looked like what you'd see like in a baseball game, like the bat like shredded on both sides. And so I looked at the bat and I was like, oh my God, you should stab this in his back. And I was like, I can't do that. Like, I can't do that. And so I threw the bat down, and then I was like, all right, what's the next thing? So I was like, oh, kick him in the balls. So, because he's on all fours. So then I start trying to kick him in the balls. But because I had sprained my ankle when he hit me earlier, it just like, it hurt so bad every time I tried to kick him, and I just was sucking at it. And so I tried with my left foot. That was even more pathetic. So I was like, okay, what do I do now? I see the wasp spray on the ground. And so I'm like, okay, I'll grab that. So I grabbed that. I crouched down right, like, cause again, his head is tucked down because of my husband's headlock. And I just start spraying that in his eyes, like point blank, finger on the trigger, back and forth, like just holding it down. And the whole time he's not making any noises, any sounds. Like, even when I broke the bat on him, there was no like, ow, or screw, F you, or like literally
like
nothing.
Terrifier.
He's just grunting and growling. He's trying to grab my husband's balls. He's trying to bite him. He's trying to break his finger. Like, he's just like, he's like an animal. And so he's slowly like army crawling my husband back through our dining room. So if you looked at us, like, it really doesn't look like much is happening, or I guess them, but that, all these wrestling matches or UFC fights, the reason they're short is they're so intense. And like, there's so much energy in that fight. So I'm spraying him in the eyes and nothing's happening. And I can feel the can start to get light. I'm like, oh my God. And then I heard my husband say something I've just never heard him say in my life before, which was, "Tenny, I need help." And it was like, sorry, but like, it was like a light switch went off in my brain, because again, my husband has never asked for help, especially when it comes to something physical. And so I know that something is seriously wrong if my husband's asking for help. So As soon as he said that, it was like a no-brainer. And I ran to the kitchen, and I knew we had two kitchen knives, 10-inch kitchen knives. I knew we had one that sucked. And then we had one that was solid. The one that was solid was stored in a drawer. And then the one that sucked was often in the butcher block. So I actually grabbed both knives just to make sure I had the solid and sturdy one, set down the crappy one. By that time, my mom had heard what was happening. She ran out. She had gotten her phone, started calling 911. And then I run back out and I started stabbing him. His back was wide open. And I started stabbing him. And I was just kept going. By like the fifth stab, I pulled out this blade, like a chunk of the middle of the blade was gone, which like somehow like you're almost like not even aware of what you're doing. And seeing that, I was like, oh my God, like, and so by the eighth time I stabbed him, my husband could feel his breathing had changed to agonal breathing, and said, Tenny, stop. And so he let him fall to the ground, and I stabbed him in the gut because I just did not think he was dead. And he said, no, Tenny, stop. And so then I stopped, and he laid on top of the guy, also thinking like this guy could just come back to life. And 911 was on the phone. So then that started the process of detectives and cops getting there and all the things. So that was my big key trouble.
How long did it take for them to get there?
Oh my gosh, it was like the longest thing ever. I think it was 8 minutes.
From the time of the call to the time they showed up?
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. If it wasn't you and it wasn't your husband, you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like 8 minutes of response time in a rural area like that where they have a ton of time to have to get there. Like in most cases, if your husband didn't subdue him, if you didn't take any action, we're not talking to you today.
Yeah, even if it was faster response time, like we've talked to detectives, and it, it's hard for me to like give myself kudos for things, but they've told us like, you guys are a rare percentage that do fight back. And so the fact that he chose us, like even if, faster response time or whatever, like most people aren't fighting, or even if they are fighting, like not responding the way. Yeah.
Homeless guy?
No. Well, okay. So his story is he had gone through a really bitter divorce. And after his divorce, he basically just spiraled. So he was living in his trailer, but on this beautiful property, but like his trailer had this hose hooked up to somebody else's house. So he was basically living like homeless. He had like beer boxes, like he turned into like wallpaper around his trailer. He was very mentally ill. He had told his mom, like, monkeys drug me down my trailer, aliens drug me back. He had this YouTube channel where he would just go on misogynistic rants where he would basically say, women are the scum of the earth. They need to be destroyed. They are just here to destroy men. They're evil, evil creatures. Like just tons of videos of content like that. And the most common question I get is like, oh, clearly he was on drugs. And he wasn't. They ran toxicology. There was no drugs, no alcohol. Like they determined a psychotic break, or that was like the best description of it, which actually made somewhat sense to me. This superhuman strength and like lack of pain that he was experiencing. And
it's crazy just that even that lasted all day, that for that guy, like that wasn't just this moment of a psychotic break. Like he came back and was still in that same heightened state. And
well, there was clearly an intention of harm. Like if you circle back to what happened to him, that was a vendetta. Like he found a victim and he was going to leave his mark.
Yeah, and I forgot to say that. So when they found him, like, so the detectives come, we get sanctioned off to our own little area, and then they're starting to, it's now a crime scene. And so they're, trying to gather all their evidence. And so the lead detective comes up to me and she's like, "Hey, Tennyson, do you have a camera?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have a camera. Do you need a camera?" Like, confused. And she's like, "No, we don't need a camera." And I realized, oh, like, he had a camera on him. He had a tripod. He had a flashlight. He had duct tape. He had duct taped gardening gloves to his wrists. So it was very clear what his intentions were that night. And that
Like
was
the torture and
also,
videotape type of thing?
that would be my, for sure.
Yeah.
And it was also, just to remind you, like, that was the first night, like, my husband was actually home, but his truck wasn't because the friend had taken the truck. So it looked like I was home alone. Yeah. And they think that, like, the first break-in, maybe why he didn't do it then, is my daughter was right there. And so the thought was maybe that threw him off and scared him. And so he decided to come back at a later time.
Was there ever any like legal recourse against you, or was it immediately home defense?
Yeah, so we were technically arrested for murder, which I honestly didn't even realize at first because we were never handcuffed or anything. But we were taken to the detective's car and read our rights. And but again, like, I was even put in the front seat, so I didn't even I was taken care of. So they were so kind and so compassionate that I didn't even realize. But the detective, I write about her. I feel like she's like a certain angel in our life because she made it so that, I don't know what the certain legal term is, but basically, like, we didn't ever have to go to court. Everything is, like, not dismissed. That's not the right word.
It's expunged, probably.
Yeah. And it's like, because there's a certain thing, like, you can provide evidence and then we'd be determined not guilty. But if it's not this certain way, I'd have to technically always, like, write, like, yes, I've been convicted of a crime, but it was not guilty. So now it's like, no, nothing ever happened. So
yeah, they probably just expunged it off the record because they probably never even took it to court.
Yeah, I don't even remember.
So you were only
details.
charged that night, but then there was no follow through.
Yeah, we basically, had read our rights, and then then it was just like, where are we going from here? We needed to go to the doctors. Like, there's all these open wounds. There's blood everywhere. Like, we're exposed to him. So we had to go to the hospital. And so that was, we never went in anywhere. And the detective always came to our house to.
Did you guys have to clean up this is a serious question. Did you guys have to clean it up, or do, like, police provide that kind of a thing? Because that, even just that seems like a crazy thing to experience.
It's a great question because, I actually note it in the book because you don't think about that stuff. And then, it was our responsibility. It's a crime scene, and then it's now like, we're out. I didn't realize there's no magic, fairy that comes in and helps that. So, and it was just all such a mess because, we're living with my mom. My parents had recently separated. My mom was actually going to, like, a trauma retreat that weekend. And so in Sacramento. So she went to Sacramento and she didn't come back for a year and a half because financially they were struggling. There was no place to really live. She wasn't going to live there. So she lived in this, like, crappy motel for a year and a half almost. And so my dad moved in, and I have a twin sister. She was living there on and off. So they kind of managed the ripping out the carpet, the floorboards. I mean, there's just so much blood. Trim, wallpaper, all the stuff.
And then what about, so how soon after that did you start the healing process?
Yeah. Well, immediately we were recommended to go to a trauma center in Seattle called Harborview, which is one of the best. It's incredible. But for their for their talk therapy, we were like, okay, well, we'll just do whatever we're told. So we showed up there working with their trauma therapist. But both of our experiences weren't that great. Their process was exposure therapy, which, have you guys ever done exposure therapy for anything? Yeah.
They basically just reopen the wound.
It's the worst. It's basically you have to expose yourself to your worst nightmare, your
Yeah.
greatest fear. And so for me, that was sitting in a room alone, even if people are right outside the door. Like we were both so traumatized. Yeah, we just couldn't even go to the grocery store alone, the bank alone, like even like sleeping in, like we moved into my in-laws. We couldn't even stay in their guest room. We pulled a mattress into my in-laws bedroom. We slept there for 3 months, like next to my in-laws. Like, you're so messed up. And so the exposure therapy was really the only thing that had been shown to us or recommended to us. So I would do my sessions there where I would be in the guest room and I'd sit alone for 20 minutes. And I share, that's kind of the first chapter of the book, is sharing that experience and inviting people into that part of it. And then my husband had his own where he would have to, like, everybody would go to bed and then he'd have to stay in the living room at night alone. And then he'd also have to walk from like the front door to the street, like to the mailbox at night. And man, just it's brutal even thinking of watching him doing it, because this is a physically strong, mentally strong guy who can barely, like, is so terrified to do something like that. So we did that for a little while, and I will say it made progress, but then I was just struggling a lot. And so eventually I went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, you need Xanax. So I was just like, walking down a hallway, every door I passed, I'd get shivers down my body. I was anticipating somebody would jump out and kill me. I couldn't sleep. And so I was prescribed Xanax 3 times a day. And then it was like, well, what else can I do? So I was like, okay, gratitude journals, like music, like we even had essential oils, like literally everything to try and help. But it's a really slow roll because, day after day after day after day after day of feeling all these feelings, not being able to sleep, being incredibly paranoid, anxiety, like it really starts to build up. And even after, like, we were able to, like, oh gosh, there's so many layers. Hopefully people, this is the intention of the book, is to really share that journey through it, because it's so complicated and messy and hard. And but yeah, it was just a lot to work through. So
Was there ever any time where there was a sense of like fulfillment or satisfaction that you did something heroic, or is it always negative following the event?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I never felt negative about it. That might sound weird, but like, I never felt like a victim. I truly, and this might sound really freaking cheesy, but like, I truly felt so grateful to be alive. Like, there were so many details that night that worked out in our favor for the outcome to have completely been a different outcome. And so I was so thankful that we were all alive, and not only were we all alive, but he wasn't alive. And so that was like, I was, just so thankful for that. And so, but calling yourself a hero is really hard. Like, but there were plenty of people around us to say, like, what you guys have done is pretty remarkable.
Well, I mean, you see this stuff in movies all the time, where you see like the revenge movie of the guy's family getting killed, and he goes out for vengeance, and
Yeah.
everybody's always cheering for that person. But what I think those movies never capture or do any justice of is, like, there's still trauma, there's still grief, there's survivor's guilt, there's the fact that you took a human life and you weren't prepared for it mentally, physically, in any way, shape, or form. There's the fact of, like, potentially you could have lost your life, which is another trauma. So there's so many layers in the survivor's story that, like, you can't even almost appreciate the fact that you overcame this massive life altering thing, and you, like, there's no enjoyment of it. There's no, like, holy shit, we made it. It's like, well, fuck, now we have to rebuild.
Yeah. And that's actually, when a couple years after the event, the show Your Worst Nightmare, have you guys heard of it or ever watched it? It's on Investigation Discovery, and they reached out to us to ask if we would be willing to share our story on there. And I mean, they barely pay you anything, but like the intention of that was like media starts sharing your story. And it was, I don't want to say it was jacked up with how this story was shared, but like it was like, so all the details aren't there or aren't correct. And which is really frustrating when that's like your lived experience and then everybody starts projecting their own opinions, which I understand. We try to make sense of things. So when that show reached out to us, it was like, hey, if we could share our story truly how it happened so people know, like, that is like, I want our story told the right way. And so I thought that show would get a little into the aftermath of it. But part of the intention of the book was when they did the episode essentially ends with like after the second break-in, the detectives are there and then we're just standing around having coffee, smiling at each other in relief, like, whew, like at least like he's gone. And I was like, that's the end. Like, that's where it starts.
That's just where it started.
Yeah. And I'm not upset because what was cool about that experience was it exposed us in a way to people where they started messaging me, which I'm a very private person. So even putting out a book is like actually pretty scary for me. But like people all over the world started messaging me and saying like, really kind and supportive things about how they were inspired by watching us. And that was really the nudge that was like, oh, maybe there's inspiration or something that can help people through the story. So everything works out how it's supposed to. I do believe that. But now that's the part of the book is to share that the story after the story.
Was there any negativity at all? Did you receive any negative feedback?
Really not really. I think for people who didn't know us, who just like hop on a news article and would look at it, there were comments like, well, why'd you have to kill him? Or didn't you let him go out the front door? Or
what's your reply? Okay.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
You guys should have had guns. Or
yeah, the Fifth Amendment was coming up a lot. Or the First Amendment.
Yeah, that's the CrossFit article that just blew up with gun rights. This is where social media is so messed up. Like somebody messaged me and was like, you're a whore, you should have died. I was like, how do you watch that or even just see our story and comment that? But that's obviously somebody who's just a turd.
People just don't cease to amaze me anymore. It's unbelievable the kind of shit that comes out of people's mouths when something like that happens.
Yeah. Or like there was this mom who I can't remember what she was commenting or responding to, but it was like she was just talking to me basically. And she's like, how could this woman as a mother leave her child after the first break-in? And like, she was disgusted with me. I'm like, I'd never left my child. My child was always with me. So,
because when you were saying that you had the baby monitor, I did start to have the thought of, would I want the baby in the room with me or not? It's almost kind of like, do you want the baby on the same side of the car or not?
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. Like if it's right with you, then is the baby going to be there to witness something? If this person comes into your room, are they better off in a different room because it's past this guy's going to pass your room before that room? Your room might be the first room. There's no right or wrong answer to that, but that somebody makes that initial judgment. So it's like, I don't know what I would do.
It's so complicated too, because obviously I had this feeling he was coming back, but it's also like all of these professionals are basically telling you you're crazy. And then like even my husband who wasn't there for the first break-in is like, he's trusting the professional because he wasn't there. And so then part of you is like, well, am I crazy? Like, I think maybe I am crazy. Like, get out of your head, Tenny. And just like, so there's all this layers like that.
Yeah, and create as normal of a situation as possible versus add to it by changing what your typical sleep dynamic would be. I mean, I'll just never understand people immediately judging, especially something like that, or making, how can you leave your child?
Well, let's talk about the book a little bit because I want people to have a chance. I mean, I think this is a story that's very important, especially for women. I think it's empowering. I think it shows what human resilience is all about and what people can do under the worst possible circumstances. We're not these sensitive flowers. I mean, like I work with mostly women, and this is a message that I think is wildly important to share. So, how deep do you get into the book about the mental health recovery side of things? Is that really what it's all about?
Yeah, it really is. It's really because what happened is this event, like, so kind of quick synopsis is like I, do this exposure therapy. It's not really working. We see some other therapists, like that helps a little bit. I kind of get into this place where like, okay, we're living in our house. Like we have now a protection dog that we're sponsored to get, like all these layers, like think like I'm still have my anxiety and thoughts and things, but like life looks normal. And so I got to a place where I'm like, okay, I guess this is what life looks like after you go through that event. And it wasn't until, do you guys know Tony Blauer?
Sounds familiar.
So he ran the CrossFit defense seminars. He has
Okay.
a whole self-defense, no fear program. He's incredible. So he asked me to be a guest on his podcast. He was like, you need to talk to my friend, my therapist guy. And I was like, okay. And this is about 5 years after. And when I was connected to him, that was when I realized like, whoa, I still have some struggles I don't really realize. And it was the first therapist I talked to who could explain like why things were happening in my body that like I couldn't just stop or turn off. And so, yeah, I'd say the first like by chapter 7, you've gotten through both events. And then it's kind of the next several chapters are about like the aftermath of, how life changes. And then the second half of the book is really like, starting my work with the therapist. But then that was where we worked on this big T trauma and nervous system regulation and I'm forgetting like all the traumatic stuff. And then as I started to, I guess, feel more safe in my body, that's where these other parts of me that are these little T traumas that I didn't realize were really running my life so much. Things like perfectionism and overachieving and people pleasing. And so my work with him, I share really openly about how I started to unpack that stuff. And the book really, like, I love reading. I love self-help books, but self-help books that are like, here's your 10 steps to happiness, or here's the 5 secrets to this, or here, like, I never really take anything away from those. They're all nice to hear. I really learn and am inspired by people's story and learning how they worked through something. And so that was the intention of this book, is to like hear in the most vulnerable and authentic way, this is how I started taking steps through. And hopefully people will find inspiration and see their own story as I share mine to work through some of theirs. And it doesn't have to, I'm not saying it has to be the way that I did it. But hopefully, it's whatever it looks like for you. And ultimately, as I started to heal those things like perfectionism and overthinking and all the things, I started to realize how inauthentically I was living. Like I was just truly living for everybody around me. Which I think is beautiful because I really care about other people, but I was always just putting myself second. And so it has allowed me to really explore myself and step into how do I want my life to look like and live and do that in the most authentic place.
Well, I think
That's
there's a big
awesome.
difference between servitude with intention to actually help others versus serving
Sacrificial.
others to avoid feeling or to avoid dealing with your own bullshit, which is, and we see this a lot with like mom guilt or women in general are gonna serve, take care of everybody else, put themselves last, and there's this kind of almost martyrdom to it. As opposed to, it's like, what are you hiding from? What are you running away from? Why are you doing all this stuff and avoiding your own feelings and avoiding your own past? It's because you don't want to face it. And that's why you keep pouring into all these other people and keep being the people pleaser and keep, over parenting or over showing up and saying yes to everything when you have to protect that energy because you don't have a lot of it left.
Well, and I would say I think there are people who want to avoid it. I also think for the most part, people are just unaware, and they learned what they experienced growing up, right? I know this is so cliche, but like, it's that they're little kids just showing up how they were loved and taken care of. And so these people who are avoiding, well, they're avoiding maybe because they're, what was modeled to them was avoided. But I think again, most people are just unaware. Like, I was so unaware how much I was a people pleaser. Like, it wasn't that I didn't want to look into it. I just had no idea. And so I think the first step is just becoming aware. And then it's like, what I love and appreciate about my therapist so much is like, it's all about compassion. I've learned it through a lens of IFS, internal family systems.
I was just going to ask you if you've, everything you're talking about, the different parts of you and all that. I was like, have you heard of international? Yeah.
Yes, I have a whole chapter called All My Parts. It's
no
like
bad parts.
literally the best therapy. Like, I think it's the best therapy ever.
Yeah.
And so, and with that therapy, as you know, it sounds like, Jim, like all of these parts are just trying to protect us and take care of us. And so they're just trying to do a good job for us. And so we need to meet those parts with compassion. And I do think that's kind of where we're a little off in society, is like, we hear the messaging of like, oh, just forget about it, or just move on, or like have more willpower or whatever. It's like, no, there's a part of them that is protecting them, and it's a beautiful part of them. And that part needs to be loved and shown the compassion that it didn't receive growing up. And then it will realize, maybe I don't have to work so hard. So that's kind of deep, but I fully believe it with all my heart.
Fantastic book. I think it's a lot of conversations that I've had in group work that I do, and even in one-on-one with clients. That's a big part. The parts and talk therapy. It's great. Dig into the past, all the Freud stuff. Everything goes back to the child. But then I think it's like Freud versus Adler. Adler, I guess, was another psychotherapist at the time, and his was like taking action now. Freud was all, it's about your past. And it's this blend of both, which is what I feel like IFS is. It's we're looking at the past, but we're taking action for the future. We can't just keep therapizing our life in the past and digging into old trauma without ever having action steps, for the future. And a lot of times we can't just ignore it and just be like, press on.
Yeah.
Like the self-help books that you're talking about. So I completely agree. Like the 10 steps to ignoring all your trauma and attempting to hide everything that's going on so that you can be successful. So many of the groups, even like the things that target men, like an Ed Milet or Andy Allen, it's like our 4 pillars of success. And it's like, but those might not be my 4 pillars. And then I'm trying to fit that mold. And then why am I not feeling authentically me? And so I think IFS, no bad parts. I've talked about it on here. Check that book out. And then that's what I love about what it sounds like yours is talking about. I completely agree. When you hear someone's story, you find from that story what you need to find versus being told what to do. So I think it's awesome.
And I would say, like, there's no yardstick to measure trauma. You guys, all the listeners, we have all experienced trauma in our own way. And so just because mine looks like X, like I compare myself to other people who've gone through stuff way worse than me. And I can't do that because then I'm like, you shouldn't feel this because look at what they went through. And so if that's somebody listening, like, it doesn't matter what you've gone through. Like, we've all experienced it. The root of the emotions and the feelings are so similar. And the chapter in IFS in my book, like, is literally me sharing, like, visiting the parts and what comes up. And what I love about IFS, what I wanted to share when you were talking is, like, I love that it is without a therapist. Like, you get the tools and how to learn how to do it, but then you can do it on your own anytime. And it takes a couple minutes and it's freaking cool. So
I like this because now they don't have to buy 2 books. They just have to buy your book, The Mother of Days.
Mother of All Days.
Mother of All Days. And you're going to get...
Great title.
Mother of All
you.
Days, you're going to get a whole chapter, which is going to show a quick summary of how to do IFS from No Bad Parts. You don't even have to buy
Dick
that
Schwartz's book too. He's incredible.
So
Get Mother of All Days first. Comes out Mother's Day this year. And then
Yes.
if you want to dig deeper.
You said May 13th, right?
May 13th, yeah, which is, again, the day that happened. It's not Mother's Day this year, but it was that Mother's Day of 2012. 2013, oh my gosh.
2013, 12
anywhere
years
where
ago.
people buy books.
Anywhere where people buy
Is there a pre-order
books.
going on?
There is a pre-order. I need to fix the link. It's kind of like something's happening right now, but there is a pre-order. I'll send you the link too, because I also
DM it to me on Instagram also, because I'll share it with my population.
Okay. Yeah. And I created a resource. So again, the book is all about the tools and resources that I've used to not only heal from trauma, but to, again, really find my authentic self. Which is all about curiosity and courage. And I get into a little woo stuff. And so I created this 5-day email series where people can literally have all the tools and my favorite things. So that will come with the pre-order too.
Let me ask you this as a final question. You said the word healing. Do you believe that you're healed or still actively healing?
Yeah, great question. No, I look at it like a scar versus a wound. I mean, I guess you'd say a scar is healed, but it's always a part of me. I still double check locks. I still get anxious thoughts. I still have a lot of things. And as life presents itself, right? Like there are new things and circumstances that pop in. And so I think it's a continual work in progress. So I'm doing well, but I still am working through it every day too, and practicing. I think I talk about meditation, breath work, IFS. These are things that become a practice, and not things I have a regimented schedule, but tools that are a practice to lean on to help.
Use them when you need them.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important message for our listeners, especially to pivot to the fat loss, body composition, self-confidence, body image thing. You may deal with these issues for the rest of your life. You may never heal your relationship with food. You may never truly get away from your eating disorder, but you can learn how to manage them so that they don't impact your day-to-day quality of life. And that's really what the goal should be.
Yeah. And I do think, just again, not to keep shouting out IFS, but my therapist has talked about IFS with eating disorder patients specifically. And he has clarified, that is a really tough one. And maybe not exactly with the clients you guys are working with, but IFS, that part of needing to control, or that just is so ashamed of their body, that's a part of them for a reason. And so again, that would be a fabulous tool. Fabulous. Who says that? Oh, cool tool to use for that.
Agreed.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have let the book come out. Maybe we'll do a part 2 or something and talk more about some of the woo-woo things that you write about.
I love.
Aram knows I'm always down for that kind of stuff.
Is Aram down for woo?
He's down. He's getting more and more down. Because it's not. I think it's the reality is it's not. As far as I'm concerned, it sounds like you as well. It's not woo-woo. These things are real things. It's not woo-woo. It's real.
It was woo-woo 20 years ago, and we all tried to push everything down because our parents told us not to fucking talk about anything. And now that I'm a 41-year-old man and I've realized where most of my problems have come from, I realize it was because you push shit down for too long and it bubbles up and it becomes louder and louder until it either has to get dealt with or it spins you off the planet. And I'd rather deal with it and be able to manage it. And that's where I think a lot of our clients suffer, is they think they're going to cure a relationship with food problem by hiring a coach, or they think they're going to improve their body image by losing 10 pounds, when in reality, these things are so internally rooted in their psychology that they have to figure out what the root cause of these things were before they start actually dealing with it.
Yeah. But having a coach, and a mentor, to me, that has been what has helped get me through all of this, is having somebody to not just hold me accountable, but be that support. And I don't want to say cheerleader, but reminder of what I'm capable of, or my potential. And so it cannot be overlooked, the role of a coach or mentor too.
No.
So, yeah.
No, I agree.
Well, Tennyson, you're not our typical fellow coach guest, but we will ask you our final question. It's the time of the day now where the sun is blasting in on me and it gets awkward anyway. We ask every guest on the podcast the same final question so we can compare and judge you to all prior 170 guests pretty much at this point. Are you ready?
Drink water first.
Sorry, I got to prepare.
Undry that throat. Are you ready for the final question?
I'm ready.
All right. Bye-bye.